These were super relatable examples. And again, because I know that what our listeners crave is, okay, so what do I do? Because these are so relatable. And I know so many people in our family and also friends we're going to start with the kind of rumination side. And I'm sure this goes for adults too. You have those people in your life that can't let it go. They're still talking about the divorce and it's been final for 3 years. They're still complaining about the what happened when mom died and who got what and like just holding on to it. How do you approach that with somebody?
So I think that let me do the girl example version and then let's
Yes,
think
let's go
bigger about
rumination.
let's just go right
Yes.
down the rumination road. So what I encourage parents and also peers to do if they're caring for a teenager who is really spinning their wheels, is to say to them, listen, talking about feelings usually helps. But what I'm noticing is the more we're talking, the worse you feel. So let's do
Mm,
this. Let's put a pin in this. Let's make a plan to talk about it tomorrow. What time do you have? What time do I have? We'll like schedule it. We're coming back to it. But between now and then, let's just do something else. Let's go think about something else. Let's just take a mental vacation from this situation. And what is extraordinary is that so often when you do that, when I've met with that kid the next day or talked to the person the next day, they're like, yeah, I don't know what I was so upset about. Like just the space alone, the time alone brings it down to size.
mm,
And they're no longer dumping stress hormones into their bloodstream. For that 24 hours, they're not thinking about it. So it helps people to find their feet. So that's a short term,
great.
something that just popped up. I think there's probably a different answer for those bigger questions around, people who are struggling to let go of a painful divorce or struggling to let go of how things went down in the family, as in the wake of a parent's death. And my hunch is for that, there's just a lot of meaning to what occurred that has not really been
Mm,
examined or
processed.
resolved.
Yeah. Yeah. What about with the boys? How do you approach that? Where
So
or any behavior of just distraction and kind of literally losing yourself in something so you don't have to face the pain of the situation and the emotions that you're feeling.
So it's interesting. Distraction can end up as costly coping, right? We can go right back to that
Mm-hmm.
category, which is, so say a boy's had a really rough day and his strategy is to play video games for 8 hours. Okay, well, he may have gotten past the rough day, but now he has a new problem because he hasn't done his homework and he needs to go to bed, right? I mean, it creates its own, side effects. So one way to take it up is just from that side of saying, look, I get it that you may have had a rough day and playing some video games helps you get through it. You can't be doing this so much that you now have a new situation to deal with. Is
Yeah.
there another way you could help yourself feel better?
Hmm.
Now, the thing here about boys and expression, right? Like that's really what's underneath this is getting kids, but boys in particular, to talk about feelings. Is that there's a lot caught up in why they don't talk about feelings. And I would say it's one of the hardest things in parenting that I hear about is parents of adolescent boys in particular who become very, very sphinx-like
Yes.
and very, very reserved. And I think that's its own fascinating and complex universe
We'll have
to
you
make
back
sense
to
of.
talk about that to make
Okay.
sense of because I think that's its whole 45-minute conversation, don't you?
It's a big one. It's a big one and it's an important one and it can be done. But for now, I'll just say expression of emotion takes a lot of forms and it's not always in language. And what I've really become
Oh.
much better at is honoring that there are healthy ways that boys express emotion, but it's not always in words, though I also wish they were more often talking about what they were feeling.
Speaking of expressing themselves, one of the things that I learned in this book that was just life changing. I wish I had known this 10 years ago. It's a word that explained my entire experience of raising teenage daughters, which is externalization. And the fact that And it still happens today. We joke in our family, Lisa, and you may have, as you're hearing me explain this, you probably have somebody in your life who does this. They emotionally dump on me. So I've realized that when our daughters want to chat, they call my husband and they have wonderful conversations about their life and what's going on in their relationships and what they need help with and blah, 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 blah. When there is any kind of upsetting or distressing situation, I will get 3 FaceTime calls in a row until I pick up. I get the tears, the venting, the frustration, the world is ending, da, 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 da. And then it's as if it's all done. They go back to their life, and I feel like somebody has thrown a bucket of slime on top of me. And now, of course, I'm all worked up, and your research shows that this is normal. And it has a name. This is normal behavior?
In teenagers, it's actually one of the very few things that is especially organized around adolescence is the use of we call it the defense of externalization. And Mel, I have a story. I have such a vivid memory of being a freshman in college myself. And I grew up in Colorado and I went to college in Connecticut. And I remember doing this to my mom. Like I remember getting her on the phone. Yeah, you did too, right? And I remember like calling her and be like, I don't know, I don't really like it here. I don't really have any friends. I'm not sure I'm gonna make it. I don't know. Then I see my roommate, I'm like, I gotta go, right? So I hang up the phone. I go out with my roommate, have a super good time. And I remember my mom called me the next day and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm fine. And my dad told me later, like, she'd been up all night. I mean, she was getting ready to like pack the cooler and drive across the plains to retrieve me. So this is not a new maneuver. Teenagers have forever and always done this. It's not a fun maneuver for parents, for sure. But it is also really hard to be a teenager. And they have a lot of big, powerful emotions. And I think sometimes the way they get through their day is to conveniently dump them, treat them like emotional trash, I think of, on the people who love them and are willing to collect their trash. And having discarded the trash, what we often find as parents is the kids don't want to talk about it. They're like, no, 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 I've dumped the trash. Like, don't ask me about it. I'm not going to answer your texts. I'm not going to pick up your phone calls. Like, just take the trash and make it go away.
That's unbelievable. You're exactly right. Because on the receiving end of it, I feel like they've dumped the trash on me. I'm weighted down. I'm worried about it. I'm thinking about it. I just had a sleepless night the other night because of something that one of our daughters is going through. And then I spoke to her in the morning. She's like, oh, what? That's fine. I mean, and it was as if nothing happened. I'm like, excuse me? I should have taped the conversation so you heard the DEFCON 10 bomb that you dropped on me. And I should probably apologize, Lisa, to my mom, because I would call her every day from the payphone in my dorm hallway at Dartmouth, collect, to cry and complain. I don't like it here. I don't know anybody here. Everybody always has their friends here. And it got so bad after 2 weeks of this that my mom said, you either hang up the fucking phone and don't call me again and get out there and make some friends, or I'm coming to pick you up the next time you call me. And you will come back home and you'll go to the community college and that'll be that. I never called her again. But then our daughters, both, that same scenario, the first couple of weeks of school, just processing the hard emotion. Wow. But it's so liberating to hear that it's normal. And so should we just kind of let the trash fly and kind of step out of the way and not feel like we have to collect it? Just let them litter?
Yes. And I think that if you're worried in this interaction, you can say to your kid, do you want my help or do you just need to vent? And that is often, if they say, I just need to vent, which is overwhelmingly what they are looking for, what I would say is visualize yourself opening an emotional garbage bag, right? And just let them unload all of that garbage into the bag. And then when the call is over, dispose of it, right? Don't carry it around. Don't take it to bed with you, right? Just be like, that was a garbage collection moment and the kid needed a place to dump the garbage. And I am, as the loving person in their life, willing to collect their garbage. But yeah, you don't need to then go through the trash yourself.
You could have saved me years in marriage counseling, because I feel like a lot of the times what my husband and I then are at odds about is my stress about what the kids have just externalized by handing me their emotional garbage. And his ability to just either not be bothered by it, not worried about it, knowing that the wave is going. Thank you, thank you, thank you for writing about that.
You got to believe.
But how do you believe it if all you see is evidence that you failed or that you haven't believed in yourself or that you've put everybody else first? Like, how do you create new roots?
Okay. I call this a reset. And I took a class with a woman, and we'll get back to detecting deception, hopefully. But I took a class, have her on your podcast. Her name is Andrea Quinn. Now, I'm from Boston. We say Andrea. She's from California. She says Andrea. She has a new book out. Don't ask me the name. I don't know. Have your team look it up and we can shout it out maybe. So Andrea Quinn. I took this class. She was out in LA. And she calls these moments when we fail or people knock us down good to knows. And if we can do a reset, and she just calls them good to know. Hey, Mel, I did not appreciate you getting me back focused on detecting deception when I wanted to talk about leadership. Good to know.
Good to know.
Good to know. They're just a bunch of good to knows. I spoke at an event called Camp Empowerment. It's a women's based event, and everyone sleeps in tents and in little cabins and stuff. And I spoke there. It's for women wanting to like do a reset. And I spoke there, and at the end, sometimes people come up and they're hugging me or crying. I make money as a motivational keynote speaker on body language and leadership and all that, sales and stuff. And there's like 42 women in line. I'm hugging them all. I spoke for 45 minutes, but I think I hugged people for 2 hours. The last woman, she had big circle glasses, black glasses, circle, right? Short, spiky hair. She had a cool vibe, I thought. She came up to me and she said, hey, Janine, you were my roommate in your last class here last year with Sarah. And I'm like, oh my God, I love Sarah. She goes, yeah, Sarah loves you too. And she goes, I wanted to stay here and to talk to you because I just don't get it. I saw you speak twice today. I don't get what you're talking about, how it's interesting to people. I don't like your personality. I just don't get what my best friend, who I've had for years, likes about you. Old Janine would have received that, taken it in, influenced my body language, how I held myself, my limited beliefs. My roots would have been destroyed because thanks to Andrea Quinn, I said to that woman, had you been there? Good to know. Anything else you want to share with me? And I walked and wiped it off. I spoke at an event called Know Your Value. Mika Brzezinski puts it together. It's a women's-based event. Before me was Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm not saying this in a braggy way. Sarah Jessica Parker, Martha Stewart, and Bobby Brown, the makeup artist. They're before me, and then I'm the like fat girl, size 22, in the back of the room, right? Coming up next,
Stop.
And I have 25 minutes, and I got my stinking thinking coming in. Boy, they didn't get a standing ovation. They didn't, people barely applauded. Like if they don't like them, like they're never gonna like me. No one even knows who I am. I'm not even famous to that level yet. And I go, Janine, pull your shoulders back. The difference between Superman and Clark Kent is a 2-inch posture difference. Clark Kent, his shoulders are pulled forward. If you we always say pull your shoulders back. That's actually wrong. You're never going to pull your shoulders back. You actually look weird, like some type of
I just pulled my shoulders back. The second you said there's a two-inch difference, I'm like, okay, shoulders back. I'm about to get interrogated. Here we go.
We've been taught wrong. Okay.
All right. What do we do?
If you pull your shoulders back, it's actually uncomfortable, and you look weird. Instead, I want you to think like Tony Stark, right? So Tony Stark has, he has this circle thing.
Oh yeah, for Iron Man.
Iron Man. He's got this circle orb that keeps him alive on his chest.
Right.
I want you to imagine you have that in the center of your chest.
Okay.
And a laser beam shoots out of it. If that laser beam, based on your posture, is going to hit the ground, then you're being Clark Kent. If you want to be Superman, where the wall meets the ceiling is a confident feeling. So you just want to take that laser beam and lift your chest to where the wall meets the ceiling. Okay. Relax your shoulders. Relax those. Yeah, much better. And as you're walking, you change how you are perceived. So I'm backstage. I'm in the back of the room. I was coming from the back. And I'm after Martha Stewart and Sarah Jessica Parker. And I have my stinking thinking. And you can't be negative more than 17 seconds. After 17 seconds, I give my positivity. I'm amazing. I know cool stuff. I'm going to change their life. People in here are hurting. At least one woman needs to know this, that she's amazing. And I do that. And I go, where the wall meets the ceiling is a confident feeling. And I fire a laser beam right there where that wall meets the ceiling. And I come up for my 25 minutes, and I got the only standing ovation for that conference. this girl that no one knew, coming in, size 22, 24, in the back of the room, hitting the stage. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough talk about me the next day on their show, Morning Joe. I sold a ton of online courses because of it. And all I did was notice self-awareness, notice my stinking thinking, no more than 17 seconds of negativity, say 5 things about me that I love. I changed my posture, and I know things. I'm not here to teach you to be healthy and strong and fit. I'm here to teach you about body language and the power of influencing people and emotional intelligence and loving ourselves. And then I just killed it. I just had a mad love affair with the audience. I made it less about me and more about them. And I'm like, they need what I know. My mother always said, your power is what you give to others.
Why don't you go ahead and start by reading? I think they're going to have you read your question, and then we can kind of talk through it.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Hi, Mel. My name is Katrina. Thank you for all your podcasts. They have saved me in the past year. Let me explain. In July 2022, just days before my 25th birthday and last year of law school, my boyfriend of 5 years dumped me. To say that this was out of nowhere would be an understatement. But looking back, I am sure there were signs that the end was coming. My future crumbled right before my eyes. I was numb for the first 3 to 4 months. I've done a lot of work since then. I've fostered many relationships and started a bunch of new hobbies, each requiring patience and confidence, 2 skills I really needed to work on. I need your help on what to do next. The state I live in has been my home all my life, and as far as I know, it's where my ex still resides. I'm unsure if it's the breakup, the last year of law school ending, or the fact that I truly have nothing tying me down here anymore, but this place no longer feels warm to me. Most of my friends are engaged and beginning to start their lives in a chapter I can no longer relate to. I'm thinking of moving to a state that has everything I love. However, a part of me knows that if I leave, the chances of me getting back together with my ex become slimmer. A brilliant and well-experienced woman once said, one decision can change the trajectory of your life forever. So I hope you can help me figure out what decision to make, or at least ways to make this grueling decision. Thanks, Mel.
Okay. So I think that this is a very short coaching session
Okay.
because I think you know the decision.
Yeah, I think I do too.
So when you just kind of went, yeah, I think I do too. I want to tell you something about decisions. It's interesting because, especially since you've just graduated from law school and you've been using that big, amazing, powerful brain of yours to get through law school, and you now think like a lawyer, you're very analytical. But the kind of decisions that change your life are not made upstairs in that lawyer analytical brain. Do you know where in your body you can feel what the decision is?
Yeah, I think it's my heart. I think, there's definitely a part of me. I left out a few things. His parents have a love story that they ended up back together after they broke up and after they had separate lives. So I think subconsciously I'm hoping that that's the case, but I know my time here, I live in Indianapolis. I think my time here has come to an end just because I don't want to be living in a place where I'm worried I'm going to bump into him or worried I'd see him on a date with someone else. Like, that's not a life I want to live. And that's not something I want to have in the back of my mind everywhere I go.
Yep. I think there's a bigger reason that has nothing to do with him. So I want you to tell me why you want to move. I mean, fuck him for a minute. Like, why do you want to go somewhere else?
Yeah. There are many reasons. I've lived in Indiana my entire life. And I think this breakup has shown me, it's shown me so many things. But one thing is that you have one life to live. And I just don't think I'm supposed to live here for my entire life. And It's something that's deep in me, and it was deep in me before we broke up. I thought about moving. I wanted to move. And so it's only accelerated it, but I have parent guilt because they live here, and I think that they don't intend on moving anywhere, but maybe if I can show them that it's possible, you can do it, you can start over somewhere new, that maybe it'll give them the confidence to do so. So I agree with you. There are reasons that are more personal than just him, and that I know from my own self-growth, it's a necessary next step.
Yeah, I think you want to make the decision not only from your heart, and I'll coach you through how to make the decision and how to read the energy of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But you can make this decision either because you want to move away from something, or because you feel called to something. Do those two places feel different to you?
I think it's 60% being called somewhere else, 40% of me feeling that I need to move away because we spent 5 years here. We were very active people everywhere. And I like to go on hikes. And now every time I go on hikes, I think about where we've been. Indy's not that big of a city to escape from all the memories. Mm-hmm. And it's been really hard to think that I can create new memories with someone else or myself without those things coming in the foreground.
Yep. It's possible for sure.
Yeah.
But it's easier if you're feeling called. And so you said a couple things to me. One is I felt called deep down even before we broke up.
Yeah.
And that this is something that I've wanted to do.
Yes.
And I will tell you, you will always regret not doing it. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is you can always come back.
That's been my main thing, is that I know I can always come back. I've made enough of a network here, and I know there are plenty of people in my corner that are here that I could rely on it. God forbid something was to go awry in the state that I've chosen. So I do want to bet on myself. It's just that
yes.
with me that feels a little guilty towards my parents. And
well, hold on a second. Your parents are grown-ass adults.
Yes, they are.
And they can move. They can get on an airplane.
Yes.
They can FaceTime you. They want you to be happy. They want you to pursue your dreams. There is nothing I would hate more than to have my kids tell me that they gave up on something they wanted to do because they felt guilty about me.
Mm-hmm.
After all the shit I've done to support them, they're now going to saddle their coward-ass chicken shit decisions on me?
Yeah. No, that resonates deeply. I know you're right. I know. I don't know what part of my smile, the inner child of me that somewhat believes that I can't go somewhere without disappointing them. But I know that you're right, that deep down that they want the best for me. They want me to be happy, and that will.
And here's what you can do. You can actually go to your parents and say, I need to do this for myself. And the only thing holding me back is my fear about you guys being upset with me. So can I ask for your support in doing something that I desperately need to do for my own growth? And I promise I can always come back.
Yeah, I think I need that reassurance for sure.
Well, you can ask for it. Whether they give it to you or not is a whole nother thing. I don't know your parents. I don't know if they're going to be emotionally immature about it, but I suspect they've seen you suffer, mm-hmm. and they've seen you sad, and they want you to be happy. And if you tell them this is what you think you need to take this risk, to do this thing, then you need to do it. Living with regret is the worst thing in the world. And so, I'm focusing us here because I need you to accept that he broke up with you. And you haven't.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't had time to.
That's bullshit.
I
'Cause
know.
all you do is think about this.
It's gotten a lot better. I mean, I've been able to. I told myself I would be on a hiatus until I take the bar in July from men, like talking to men, and I've gotten over that. I've allowed myself to live and like freely talk to adult males who I find interesting or attractive, and I've been using the 5-second rule, and it's worked wonders, and it's given me bountiful connections. It's just, I don't know, there is a part of me that is hanging on to this little piece of hope that, because he was the person that, I mean, everything I wanted in a person was him, except the fact that he didn't want me. So maybe that should be enough.
That's the single biggest thing that you need.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you?
Yeah, you don't.
But you do. Because you think if you can win him back, it means something.
Yeah.
What does it mean if he comes back?
He regrets the decision that he.
But what does it mean about you?
Oh,
what does it mean about you?
Probably not anything commendable. I mean, you take in someone that second guessed your worth and their perception of you as what you meant to them in your life, and how I wasn't enough.
See, there's a part of your value and worth that you have handed to him.
Yeah.
And him coming back and wanting to be with you is what you think is going to give you that piece of self-worth back. That's why you're holding on to it. Because you think there's something wrong with you or missing from you or deficient, and only he can give it back to you.
Yeah, we haven't even spoken since, since July. I haven't seen him. It's been...
There's nothing to say.
Yeah.
He said everything when he broke up with you without warning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also think you need to look back at the relationship, if you're going to, with a much more critical eye. Because there were signs. There were always signs.
Yeah, there were absolutely signs. Especially...
What were the signs?
Well, 2 years into our relationship, he cheated on me.
Okay, there's a sign.
That's a sign. 2, about 3 weeks before he broke up with me, he's Mormon, and I'm Christian of general. And he had some Mormon people over, and it was we got in a big fight essentially, and I saw him look at me differently in that time. And then on our 4th of July weekend, when he broke up with me, he was very distant. Also, all of our mutual friends broke up with their girlfriends 2 weeks prior. So every guy in our group that
Are they all Mormon?
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're not, but they all broke up with their girlfriends 2 weeks prior. And then I was next. I was the next target to be hit.
Or captive to be released.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yeah, he was.
You need to change your story. You need to change your story. He was not everything you thought you wanted. He was not. He was somebody that cheated on you, that you forgave, who then started to ice you out because he felt the pressure from LDS leaders, which he's allowed to do. And he did it in a really chicken shit, mean, disrespectful way. Had he sat down with you and explained from his heart the pressure he feels, how much he cares about you, how much this time is meant to you, but he just can't get past the religion, blah, blah, blah. If he had done that, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But see why you feel pissed. And I'd like you to get into the anger instead of the sappy doopy, oh, but doopy day. Should I move? Should I not? Fuck him. You got to get into that mode of, I was fucking disrespected by this son of a bitch. How fucking dare he? What a chicken shit, piece of shit, traumatized. What the, I was dating a boy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. Not emotionally intelligent. Definitely.
Now we're talking. Come on, what else?
Oh, man, it's so hard.
No, it ain't. It's only hard because you've been telling yourself a different story.
Yeah.
And the story that you need to tell yourself is this one. When it's not love, it's a lesson. And the lesson that he taught me is I want an actual man. I want somebody who talks about his feelings. I want somebody who is upfront with me when something's not working. I want somebody who respects me to have the hard conversations. And I also learned that I am a fucking lawyer. And if I can get my ass through law school, I am an adult who wants an adult relationship with an equal. And I was dating a child and I was making excuses for him, and I'm not fucking doing that again.
Yeah.
How about that story?
I like that story. That
I
story.
say it with love.
That story, I think I'm going to keep in my back pocket. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Here's one other thing I want to say to you. We got to come up with your plan B when you bump into him. Because I have a feeling that literally within the next 48 hours, you are going to bump into him.
I do too. I know. I've had this feeling for a while.
Okay, so what are you going to do?
I don't know. I've just thought about saying hi, and I mean, I'm in a much better headspace now. Like this is, the breakup has been one of the biggest blessings, truly. Like it has been, the amount of relationships that I've fostered and the amount of people that I've met since then that I never would have met, and their stories I never would have heard. Like it's given me a new light. It's given me a new reason to live in a new pursuit. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned how loyal I am as a friend and how many people I have in my corner. It's just, so I want to exert that kind of energy when I see him, if I was
Great.
to. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Like if he asks me how I'm doing, I want to say I'm doing great, because I am.
Okay, great. But there's still that little piece.
Yes.
And I want to turn that piece into something powerful for you. And it's the truth. And the reason why you can't let this go is because of how he handled it.
Yeah.
Because you are a person of principle and you deserved to be treated differently. This is not about the breakup. This is not about what happened. It's about the how.
Yeah.
And so the way that we're going to do this, because we're going to role play, is I want you to put on your lawyer hat.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And I want you to say, like, you're just going to try this on like you and I are shopping together. Because having this rehearsed will help you not get triggered. Because when you see the person, it will be a little bit like, oh my God. So expect a little bit of the wave, like, oh shit. And then you're going to take a deep breath and you're going to walk right up to him. Do not look away. Do not worry if he's with somebody, even better. You're going to walk right up and you're going to say, hey, I had a feeling I was going to bump into you. It's actually really great to see you because I'm moving. Something I've always wanted to do. And I wanted to thank you. Thank you for ending it. Because I probably would be making different decisions if I were still putting you first. But I do want to tell you, the way you handled it was really awful. And I deserve better. And now I feel better that I told you.
Yeah, that's tough. That's how you, I don't know how.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm him. I'm like walking and I see you and I'm like,
Okay. Hey, Nick.
hi.
It's great to see you. I had a
Yeah, it's
feeling
good
I
to
was
see
going
you.
to bump into you recently. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yeah,
And
you look great. You look really great. How you doing?
thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to let you know I'm moving soon. And I truly wanted to thank you for allowing me and giving me this time to
Nope.
no
Okay, we're gonna start over. No, I want to thank you for ending it
for ending it. Okay.
because I wouldn't have,
Yeah, I would not have.
and I needed you, and it needed to end,
Yeah.
and I'm happy it ended. But I do have to tell you, the way you handled it, not cool. Not cool at all. I deserve better, and I hope you treat women better in the future. See you later. All right, here we go again. I'm Nick.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, Nick.
Oh, hi. Hey.
How's it
Wow.
going?
Uh, uh, everything's great. Everything's really great.
I had a feeling I'd bump into you. That's really odd, but I just wanted to let you know. Um, I wanted to thank you actually for ending what we had. I
Really?
yes, I'm recently made the decision to move,
Oh,
and
wow.
I would not have made this decision had we stayed together. And after great reflection, it's been truly the biggest blessing. The way in which it was done was not acceptable. And I hope that you can do better for the women that are in your life in your future. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a good life.
Case dismissed, man. He's convicted. You're the winner. That was incredible. How do you feel?
It feels empowering and it feels honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That last word is it. Because like a lot of that gotcha, and I'm just going to say that thing where I pretend to look that doesn't work. But you're being honest because I really feel that it's the justice piece of this that hooked you.
yeah.
That's what has kept you attached to this, that it wasn't right. And when you distinguish the relationship ending, the what from the how it ended, it gives you your power back to go, wait a minute, I was mistreated here. I need to say something. This fucking coward did this and then slinked off into the sunset? I don't think so.
Right. Right.
And I also love that you can see the difference between making a decision because you're weak and you don't want to bump into this loser on a hiking trail. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I know.
He's probably not hiking anywhere because he's scared to bump into you.
Possibly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Even if he has somebody new, he's going to be scared to bump into you. Because he also knows he was a coward and he disrespected you the way he did this. And so you know that you are now making a decision to move toward your power and toward your growth. And you also know that you can always come back. You can always move home. Like that's there for you forever. But I think you are going to find something in this move that you didn't even know you were seeking. And I am so excited for you. And I want to leave you with a tool. So you already located it in your heart, but the way that you make a decision in the future that, is kind of one of these big weighty ones is you just kind of close your eyes. And I want you to think about the two options. Do I stay in Indianapolis or do I move to this new place that I've always wanted to live? The decision that aligns and is true for you is the one that is going to feel more expansive, like that something inside you opens up. It doesn't mean it's an easy decision, doesn't mean that there aren't things you're concerned about, but that it's going to create growth, that there's something exciting, even if it's scary, about that decision, that there's some expansive energy to it. And that's how you can feel in your heart and in your gut that that is a decision that's aligned with who you are and where you're meant to go. If you are making a decision and you feel yourself shrink a little,
yeah,
you feel the energy go down,
mm-hmm.
you feel kind of, instead of the expansion, like this kind of contraction of energy. That's a no. It's a no. And that's why I opened up our conversation by saying, I think this is going to be a short conversation because you already know. And one other piece of advice I'm going to give you is this. When making decisions in life, always use your heart to know what the truth is for you. And that's why I knew immediately, oh, she knows she's moving. This is like not even a question. She's already knows what. You'll use your brain, and you've got this beautiful analytical lawyer brain that's going to help you figure out that, okay, when am I doing it? How's it going to happen? Like, okay? And there's a story you tell in the book about being at a event where you're giving one of the bazillion keynote speeches that you give, and a survivor of sexual abuse comes up to you. Can you share that story?
Yes. So I was speaking at a conference on sexual assault, and I'm a sexual assault survivor. And I give the presentation, and when it's over, people are responding really well. And then I'm standing there in this line, which I know you are used to. And there's a long line of people waiting to kind of share their response or their connection to what you said. And I see toward the back of the line this woman who we would say had a bad attitude, right? But I know attitude is despair. But
hold on a second. Attitude is despair?
Yeah. So a form of depression people often don't recognize is irritable depression, right? Yeah.
Wow.
And people don't respond to compassion to women with a quote unquote bad attitude. But if we said, when I see that woman, she's in despair, maybe then I would respond with compassion. But some of us, by family, by culture, by religion, we're taught that sadness is weakness. So we mask our sadness with anger, with bitterness, with attitude, right? But underneath it is the despair.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's like an iceberg. You see the anger on the top, but there's something so much deeper going on.
So much deeper underneath.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you could pick up on the attitude and the energy.
But I know there's the story there, right? Especially because when you know you haven't done anything, right? So I am feeling on the receiving end of your upset, and I haven't done anything, so that I know there's a story.
Yeah.
So, when it gets to be her place, she's next in the line, and she says to me with the attitude, so you're a survivor? And I said, look, I just gave a whole keynote on it, right? I say, yes. And she says, well, you don't look like any survivor I've ever known. So the doubting can be triggering as we think about not being believed. But then I go deeper than that and decide not to get defensive. Instead, I just let her question/statement hang in the air. And I just, what I would say, soften, right? I soften and I just look at her, and it's like now she can see me. Like on the stage with my PowerPoint and my pantsuit, she couldn't see me, right? She could only see the strength and the oratorical skills.
Yeah.
But now standing in front of her, kind of woman to woman, she could see the vulnerability. And seeing the vulnerability, she said, the only survivors I've ever known were fat and poor like me. Right? So then it's the different ways our surviving shows up. And for some of us who are often overlooked, we coped with busyness and with what I would call a spirit of excellence. And when you are excellent, people don't notice your wounds. And sometimes you don't notice them. You feel you've outrun it.
Yes.
But it's there late at night, early in the morning, when you're in certain environments, it shows up that it's still bleeding. and you've just gotten busy but not healed.
What's the difference? I guess what is healing?
Yeah. So it is the homecoming of being accepting and loving of myself. When I accept me, I have nothing to prove. There's a life coach here in Los Angeles. I'm gonna give you her name later, but she has a beautiful quote I love, which is, I don't want to be driven, I want to be called. And this idea of like when you're driven, your trauma can drive you.
Yeah.
Like your insecurity can, where you have to constantly prove yourself, and it's this franticness, versus when I'm at home, then I can be in flow with what is me. Yeah.
Wow. If you have somebody in your life who has that irritable depression,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how do you practice softening
Yes.
and compassion? Because oftentimes if you're around somebody who's constantly irritable,
Mm-hmm.
who is always angry about or frustrated with something, I have
Yeah.
several people that come to mind right now in
Mhm.
my own life.
Yeah.
What are some tools
Mm-hmm.
that we can use
Right.
to practice more compassion in those moments so that
Yeah.
we lead with compassion rather
Yeah.
than get so reactive?
Right. And I love that question, because I think what we often get pulled into is being combative with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always going to out-combat us because they're in warrior mode, right?
Right.
And so, when they come with the intensity, then I respond to the softness. And I would say one of two ways. One is if I can relate at all, I'll give my own experience. Right. And that helps them not to feel judged. Right. I'm not
Yep.
saying like calling you out because I see what you're doing. It's just saying, there was a time where, and whatever that story is. And often I have learned transparency is contagious.
Mm.
And sometimes then people say, oh, me too. Right. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, you too. Yeah, you too. So the testimonial, or if I know anything that's been happening in their life, to name that, to say, because they're responding with all this intensity about distraction.
Right.
So then I will say, well, I really wanted to check in because I know this is such a busy time with you, that you're moving, that you're this, that you're that. And for us to ask a deeper question, because the how are you gives us finding you.
Yeah.
Right. So break out of the script. And so instead, with everything you're holding, what's been helping you to manage, right? Or what do you need, or how can I help?
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to the unspoken.
If you bring in the chicken and the eagle,
Mm-hmm.
can we use that fable to describe that moment where the survivor in the audience
Yeah.
has this irritable, depressive moment with you?
Right.
What is happening for her, in your opinion, as a
Mhm.
psychologist?
Yeah. So I like to say the reason you feel unsettled is because you're not supposed to settle.
Say that again?
The reason you feel unsettled is because you're not supposed to settle. So what area of your life are you settling?
And I would imagine that any area where you feel unsettled.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's
There it
where
is.
there it is.
So, what happens is often we are focused so much outwardly, if only. If only my spouse would do this, if only my kids would do this, if only my supervisor would do this. And in this moment, we don't have the capacity to shift them. So how might you want to shift? Right.
That's a big ask, because it's easier to try to order everybody else around in your life.
And frustrating and
Yes.
annoying and
Yes.
and draining. But it also lets me off the hook, because I can keep waiting for their homecoming, right? I can come home to myself when they come home to themselves. Well, everybody is on their own timing. And what I like to remind myself is I don't want to keep my healing hostage waiting for the healing of those who harmed me.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing when we're like waiting for the apology.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't heal till you see what you did to me.
Yes.
Like, that could be years.
It might be your whole lifetime.
It may be your whole life, right? They have gone on with their lives. They don't care. They're not thinking about it. And so I want to take my healing out of their hands.
Mm. And give it back to yourself.
Yeah.
And so the process of coming home and the homecoming is the act of self-healing.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
about joining back in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we have such a huge international audience and therapy can be very expensive. I would
Mhm.
love for you to read these 6 questions that you often ask patients
Yeah.
that can be a sign of what you call psychological homelessness. And so I would also love for you, Dr. Tama, to talk about what is psychological homelessness. I've
Yeah.
never heard that phrase before, but it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm. So, psychological homelessness is this sense of wandering, being ungrounded, unrooted, confused. And we can spend years saying, I don't know, I'm not sure. And even when I'm waiting for other people to give me the answer, then they're my compass. But I need a compass. That's what we talk about with therapy, is at some point people need to internalize it. So it's not just every week people coming and saying, so Tama, what do you think?
Yeah.
Right? They have to get to the point where I was having this conversation with my sister and I realized I was doing this. And so well, there it is. Right now you have become your compass, right? So here are the questions. Does the state of your life, internally or externally, fall short of what you imagined? Did you attain what you thought you wanted, only to discover that you still feel empty and unfulfilled? Do you have a sense of powerlessness or hopelessness? Do you lack the energy or motivation to pursue the things that used to matter to you? Do you feel there are no words to capture the ache in your heart? Do you find yourself crying often, or does it seem impossible to cry?
If somebody resonates with any of those questions,
Yeah.
what should they do?
Yes. So I want to first say to anyone who connected with those, you've taken the first step, which is awareness. Because I can't come home to myself if I don't realize I'm wandering.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we don't realize it. Time is passing and you don't know it. So the fact that in this moment, as you're listening, you chose to tell yourself the truth. That is your mind, heart, body, spirit telling to you, we're ready. Right? Because when we don't feel ready, we're distracting ourselves, we're busying ourselves, and then truth shows up. So telling yourself the truth is the first step. And then we think about both self-care and community care. And sometimes when we don't feel good about ourselves, we neglect ourselves and we erase ourselves. And those can have cultural messages and gender messages and religious messages where people will say self-care is selfish.
Right.
And so to say to myself, I am not just a tool for other people's nourishing. I am not just a pathway for other people to get goodness in life. That I too am a living soul that is deserving of the goodness that I want other people to experience. And so it is a sacred act to begin to care for ourselves. And the catch is, when we talk about behavioral psychology, with behavioral psychology, you start to do the action even if you don't feel it yet, right? So if I say, like, I'm going to wait till I have high self-esteem and then take good care of myself, like, it's not going to work.
Right.
So I have to start doing it even when I don't feel it,
Yes.
right?
Yes. What do you, like, the word that keeps coming to mind is purpose. So you hear a lot of people say, I don't know what my purpose is. I need to find a purpose. Is that a code word for I am disconnected from myself?
That is definitely a code word, and the name came back to me of the life coach I quoted. So I just want to give Shannon Yvette is the one who gave the quote I said earlier. But when people don't have a sense of their purpose, that's an indication of disconnection. I also want to say when we are in unhealthy relationships and on toxic jobs, in order to survive those, you have to disconnect. It's impossible to be at home with yourself and stay in relationship with someone who is dishonoring you perpetually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for somebody that just had, like,
yes,
a wake-up call.
Then you can have compassion for yourself, because people will judge you and say, like, why'd you stay so long?
Right.
But you weren't connected to you. You had been disconnected from yourself, so you don't even feel the capacity to dream again, to imagine, to believe that better is possible for you and that you are deserving of it and worthy of it.
I know you have a specific breathing pattern that is associated with a calmer mind. Can you teach it to us?
I love it so much. It's the 15-second breath. So if you're having a panic attack, this is going to fix it in 2 minutes or less. And what researchers discovered is you take twice as long to breathe out as you breathe in. It produces an automatic relaxation response in your body. So the pattern is this, and it's 4 seconds in.
Okay.
Hold it for 1.5 seconds. 8 seconds out. Hold it for 1.5 seconds.
Will you walk us through it?
So 4 seconds in. Hold it. 8 seconds out. Hold it out. And then repeat. And I have an app called Happy Brain, HAPI Brain, and actually has a pacer that does that for you. And all you have to do is when you see the circle get bigger, breathe in. When you see it get smaller, breathe out. And it's so simple. And try to breathe more diaphragmatically or more with your belly. So let the energy of breathing go lower in your body. And if you just practice this on a regular basis, cortisol will go down. And you're just going to get flooded with a feeling of calmness and relaxation. Now you got to practice. You have to create a pathway in your brain of relaxation.
Why does this 15-second breath work?
Because it stimulates, encourages your brain to go into a parasympathetic state. So there's a difference between stress, what scientists call sympathetic state, has nothing to do with sympathy. It's a bad word. But a sympathetic state is where I was on the beach at Corona del Mar walking my dog, and I saw 2 pit bulls running toward me.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, right? So my heart went fast. I mean, it was panic, and ended up turning out okay. But
well, what happened? Now I'm on the edge of my seat. Did you pick up your dog? Did they just jump up?
Oh no, he was a big white shepherd, and
Oh.
I got bit. He ended up in the ocean. yeah, it was sort of a disaster. I still get triggered sometimes, which we should talk about a little bit, because in my elite brain training program,
Yeah.
it's critical to eliminate trauma, or at least to learn how to dissipate trauma. Because I love walking on that beach so much. So I actually did a session of EMDR. I don't know if you and I talked about EMDR.
Yep.
It's specific psychological treatment for trauma. It's actually really cool. It is, I have my patients write down 10 of their worst traumas. And then through a specific protocol, I'll have their eyes go back and forth while they bring it up, and it tends to help dissipate it. It's very powerful. Or when I go on that beach now, I'll often find myself doing this.
And what you're doing is rubbing your hands back and forth.
Right. And it's bilateral hemisphere stimulation in my brain, right? I feel it on one side, then the other side. And that just takes the anxiety that I might associate to that beach and washes it away, which can be so helpful. So many people, they drink to manage their anxiety from past trauma. They're using marijuana, now more magic mushrooms. And I'm like, no. There are way better ways to do that are not potentially toxic for your brain.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to come back and do a whole nother episode on that for sure. How do you calm a very busy brain?
So the first simple thing to do is the diaphragmatic breathing, the breathing pattern that we just talked about. The second thing that we haven't talked about, but so important, is to direct your thoughts. I was 28 years old before I learned I didn't have to believe every stupid thing I thought. And I'm in class when I was a psychiatric resident at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and I heard my professor say that, and I'm like, no way. Because my mind would fairly torture me. I'm one of 7 children. I was pretty much irrelevant. I have 5 sisters. There's a lot of chaos in my family. And my mind would torture me. And if you start writing down your negative thoughts and just ask yourself whether or not they're true. And there's a whole process I teach my patients. It's just so helpful that I need to be the director of my mind rather than my ancestors directed, or the voices of my parents directed, or the news, or the gossip at work. I need to be the director. And since I want to be happy, connected, purposeful, I often go, well, does this thought fit me being happy, connected, and purposeful? And Mel, just because you have a thought has nothing to do with whether or not it's true or whether or not it's helpful. Or, everybody has crazy thoughts. Jerry Seinfeld once said the brain is a sneaky organ. All of us have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that nobody should ever hear. And just because you have a thought, it doesn't say one thing about you. It's just sort of, like the weather. It's not the thoughts you have that make you suffer. It's the thoughts you attach to that make you suffer. And when you really understand this, so we talked about the physical functioning of your brain. Well, now we're talking about programming.
Yeah, let's stop real quick because I want to ask you a question. Because I want you to talk to the person that has never considered that they could direct their thoughts, or that the things that they think aren't necessarily true. if there's a person hearing this, just like you were 28 years old, sitting in a class when it first entered your mind, other than taking out a notebook and just start to write down the things that are popping in your mind, is there some other way to help someone kick the door open? Because this is a revolutionary and life-changing concept when somebody first entertains the notion, Dr. Amen, that you can direct what you're thinking about and you can dismiss some of the crap that you torture yourself with as untrue. How do you begin this mental training and reprogramming?
So I don't have any tattoos, but if I got one of the first tattoos I would get is it true? It's just start carrying that question around in your head. And so when you get a thought, my wife never listens to me. I've had that thought. If you have that question, then you don't automatically have to attach to it. You can talk back to it. I don't know if you were good at talking back to your parents when you were a teenager, but I was excellent. And no one had ever taught me to talk back to myself. And so we don't have to believe the nonsense that's going on in our head. Just sort of begin to think about it like the weather and then go, does this thought serve me? Does it help me? Is it even true? And it's so often the lies we tell ourselves that keep us overweight, depressed, and feeble-minded. And it's a revolution, I think, all second graders. I actually have a children's book called Captain Snout and the Superpower Questions, where I teach kids not to believe every stupid thing they think. I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. So you need a little anteater patrolling the streets of your mind.
There is a huge, brand new, just published study from Georgetown Medical Center, published in the JAMA Psychiatry Journal, which is a really big, prestigious journal. So this research is legit.
My dad used to get that. The journal, I think it's of American Medical Association.
Probably.
I can't believe that.
So this is legit. They compared in people who have anxiety, taking Lexapro versus doing mindfulness-based stress reduction, which often looks like a body scan or gratitude journaling.
Now, by body scan, you don't mean climbing into an MRI.
No, I mean, how is my body feeling right now?
So a lot of times in yoga, they'll use this relaxation technique in a class where you're like, scrunch up your feet, relax them. Scrunch your ankles, relax them. Flex your quads, relax them. That's sort of a way to kind of body scan. So that's one example. What's another example they used?
Gratitude journaling.
Really?
Yes, that's a powerful example of mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Okay, so they studied Lexapro.
Yes.
And then they also studied these mindfulness techniques that bring you into your body and into the moment.
Yes, and there are a number of them, but those are just two to highlight. It's the gratitude journaling. And what they found is the drop in anxiety was equal between Lexapro and just doing these deliberate mindfulness-based stress reduction practices like a gratitude journal.
Wow. I think I have a hunch for why that might be. Well, because as somebody who has dealt with and felt anxiety for almost my entire life. I mean, I have it under control now and I profoundly understand it. So I'm annoyed by it, but I'm not scared by it anymore. What's interesting is that anxiety, as we know, is an alarm. And anxiety is signaling that something's up and you need some reassurance. And anxiety also typically takes you immediately into the future that something bad's about to happen. If you're directing your mind to pick up a pen and to start writing what you're grateful for, you're activating a part of your mind that's different from the part of the mind that takes over when you're anxious. And And so it's a way for you to almost like shortcut
Yeah.
in your own mind
Yeah.
this skill of pulling yourself into the present moment. And if you are having a panic attack or you're anxious, you're not in the present moment.
Exactly.
And so this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. And the research, still emphasizes that there's a need for medication and for
course.
practices, but in conjunction can have a really, really powerful effect, especially in how your brain actually changes, what areas are active.
Well, and the other thing that I've found personally and that we know based on the research is that the more that you practice these strategies, whether it's doing a body scan of your own body in the moment, whether it's gratitude journaling, whether it's certain forms of breathing,
Yeah.
whether it is redirecting your thoughts. The other exercise we talk about a lot is the 5 senses, where in a moment where you feel anxious, you say, well, what can I smell right now?
Yeah.
What do I see in front of me? And by describing those 5 senses, again, you are interrupting that part of the brain from taking over, signaled by the alarm, and you pull yourself into the present. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, definitely.
But
It's
I
awesome.
love knowing. Why do I love knowing that researchers at Yale have confirmed that? Because a lot of this is common sense. Not
a lot
the
of it is
birds.
common sense, but I think there's something about knowing your time spent in your gratitude journal is worth it.
That it matters.
It matters.
It really does.
Yeah.
Oakley, I have to stop you because I want to point out 2 really critical things. Number 1, you stopped caring about what other people thought. Now, look, you had it easy because you were locked in your house, so you didn't have to see people. But when you can figure out how to care more about how you feel today about yourself, rather than focusing on caring whether or not people are going to pick on you for the skinny jeans or your poodle perm, in my case, when you can actually stop caring and you can care more about your own happiness, that right there changes everything. And so what you're describing is you had this epiphany that we all need to have, which is the only thing that matters is whether or not you're waking up today and you are going to do things that make you happy. That's the only thing that you should care about. And there's a second thing that I want to point out. Instead of being surrounded by people who are critical of you, which is what was happening in school, you were now stuck at home with 4 people who love you.
Exactly. I knew they loved me and I knew that they respected me. And I'd wake up every day and I wouldn't like look in the mirror and be like, well, there are my man boobs. There's like my ugly ass double chin. I wouldn't see that. I'd look in the mirror and be like, today's a day. Time to go fucking play Xbox for 30 hours. Like, like it was awesome because we were all together and it was awesome. But it was just like, I was walking every day and I was enjoying my time and I wasn't ever like getting down on myself. And what I came to realize is that when I worry about what other people think of me, it like drags me the hell down. And when I didn't think about other people or I didn't think about what they were thinking about me, I wasn't like, yeah, like I bet they look so stupid right now, or I bet their hair looks ugly. Because like I didn't know, nor did I give a shit. So I wasn't trying to impress anybody and no one was trying to impress me. So what I really realized was that when social scenarios get in the way and you are worried about what other people think of you, that's when you get down on yourself.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about you, Oakley, is that you're not on social media a lot. And based on the research, there's a lot of kids that came out of that 2-year weird period in our lives way worse in terms of mental health because they spent that time at home mainlining social media. So even though they weren't in school, they were online doing that same comparison thing in isolation on their own. It is so freaking damaging when you mainline social media and you use it as a battering ram. And then you say to yourself, well, I hate myself. I hate the way I look. I wish I looked like that. And so I think that's an important thing to point out, Oak, that you weren't sitting there doing that probably because you were on Xbox playing video games for 30 hours a day. But that's a big deal. And so there was a very poignant moment that you described to me that I keep thinking about. And I would love for you to share this moment with everybody because you're so lucky that this happened when you were 17. It's poignant that self-hatred ends when you stop criticizing yourself. Like, the comparison is something that we can all work on. But the self-criticism that we engage in relentlessly, every single one of us, that's the source of self-hatred. So describe this moment where you had this amazing breakthrough.
You only go through life with yourself. You are the only person that you wake up with and you go to sleep with every single night and every single day. And you are the only person that you need to please. You are not going to live your whole life with the ability to please everyone else, because that's not going to make you happy. Because at the end of the day, if you're not happy, other people's happiness won't boost you. It won't make you feel better.
That's a crazy simple way to explain how profound it is when you learn how to accept, be kind to, and eventually love yourself. And you said something to me when we were talking about this that I thought was really like so simple, but also gut-wrenching in its truth, which is when you were removed from the situation of walking into school, where you were worried people are going to pick on you, worried about whether you fit in, trying to get the attention off you, all of this energy pointed at managing this. And it's all energy that is based on the belief that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That when that got removed and you were just quarantining with me and Dad and your two older sisters, you had this epiphany where you're like, well,
there's nothing wrong with me.
yeah. So here's what we're going to do. You and me, we're bringing the fun. And rule number 1, stop focusing on all the logistics. Focus on the laughter. I'm not kidding about this. I want you to weave laughter into the logistics. If you did the work ahead of time to plan for fun and to make sure it's fun, it will be fun. And, you know, when I say don't just focus on the logistics, also focus on the laughter, I want to tell you a quick story. So we're hosting Thanksgiving this year, and my husband, thank God, is handling the logistics. And so he put together an email and he, assigned all the things out that everybody was doing. And yeah, bring the dogs and, bring a bathing suit and blah, 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 blah. And everybody replies back, excited to see you. And we're so excited to get together. And so now as the emails are starting to fly, I'm starting to feel excited. But everybody's just kind of commenting on the logistics. We'll be there Thursday. We'll be there Wednesday night. We're going to bring the dog, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, our son Oakley replies. And he replies in all caps, "People, we are going to destroy this feast!" Exclamation word. And I just laughed out loud. That could be you. Why not reply to the family logistics text chain with a hilarious GIF of somebody dancing with a turkey? Why not put in a hilarious photo of somebody in the family? Why not bring the fun? So don't just focus on the logistics. Make sure you focus on the laughter too. Now, let's talk about step 2. How do you stop falling into the, fun will just happen spontaneity category, and you fall into the, I'm going to make this fun thing happen category? Well, let's look at the research. People who are happy do things that make them happy. That's one of those studies where I'm like, yeah, duh. But then you're like, oh, no wonder I'm not happy. I'm not doing anything or prioritizing happiness. They work at things that make them happy. And it makes sense because when you try things that make you happier, you're a happier person. Well, guess what? The exact same research relates to fun. It's seriously so obvious, it's kind of stupid, but let's have some fun with it, right? Let's not be embarrassed. Your life becomes fun when you plan things that are fun to you. Or even when normal things. You just bring a fun attitude like our son did to the email chain. All caps, exclamation, let's go, people. And on that note, I want to share a story with you about the power of bringing the fun, okay? Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Thankfully, we have somebody in our family who's incredible at this. Our oldest daughter, Sawyer, who's 23 years old, this woman always brings the fun. I mean, she is always doing something really fun with her friends. I can give you a few examples. There was one year where she and her friends were out in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I was looking at the photos online, and they were out at bars in these colonial costumes, literally, like think Holly Hobby, bonnets, prairie dress, apron. They had gone on a bar crawl in costume, like looking like women from a colonial era, like Little House on the Prairie. It was such a riot that people all over Breckenridge were stopping them. They were featured on the Breckenridge Facebook page. People were taking photos with them. I mean, talk about bringing the fun. That's hilarious. I mean, I'd never think to order costumes and go on a themed bar crawl. Who does that? Well, apparently people who have fun do that. Another thing that she did recently is we had all of her college friends from Boston College up with their moms for a big mother-daughter weekend. And when we found out that one of the moms, who was a widow, had just gotten engaged to her boyfriend, Sawyer turned to me and said, "Let's throw a wedding." I'm like, "Throw a wedding?" She's like, "Yeah, we're going to throw a wedding." And sure enough, impromptu, they made a sash for the mom. We made a veil out of a paper towel, like a long thing of paper towel, and flowers out of like foil. And then we blew bubbles, and we had her daughter, who was wearing this huge foam hat, walk her down the aisle in our living room. And then Sawyer it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Why? She brought the fun. When she heard something, she leaned into it, and we just it was just amazing. And she also did this repeatedly during quarantine. So quarantine was actually a really awesome time for our family once we got over the grieving and we settled into the routine of being together, because our kids brought the fun. Sawyer went through and made an entire chart for the month of March, and she came up with theme nights every other night. There was a family Olympics night. There was a bake-off where we divided up into teams, and we had to bake desserts, and we also had to dress up as chefs. I mean, it was super fun. But the most fun night was a night that I had never heard of. This is a theme you should steal. I love this. It's an anything but clothes dinner. And what does that mean? I didn't know either. It means you have dinner with your family wearing anything but clothes. You're not supposed to go nude. You are supposed to wear something other than clothes. So Sawyer, for example, took 2 huge king-size pillows and duct taped them all around her. So she put one in the front, one in the back, and then duct taped it. So that was her clothes, or her outfit. I can't remember what Oakley wore, and I can't remember what Kendall wore, oddly enough. But I took a champagne bottle box, and I put it across my chest. And the way that I fastened it to me is I poked holes in the top of it, and then I put a ribbon around it and hung it like a necklace, and then put duct tape on the side so it stayed in place. And then I made a pair of pants out of brown grocery store garbage bags, like 1 bag per leg, and then taped the front together. Now, Chris's outfit was something. Chris took a rubber pot lid. So you know how you have like a metal pot lid? Well, somebody gave us once these like kind of rubber lids that you can put on top of dishes like in the summer so that flies can't get them, and it had like a little knob on it. He hung this thing across the front of him in front of his private parts. And that's all he wore, except for a pair of clogs and socks. I mean, when he came down the stairs, I almost had a heart attack. He had basically a pot lid across the front of him with a ribbon around his waist and clogs on. I'll tell you, we have laughed about that moment forever. And every time, we get into a fight, Chris threatens to wear that to the rehearsal dinner for one of our kids' weddings. What you're going to learn is that it's not that hard. It only takes one additional person to cause a major shift with you and have the fun be what everybody remembers. That's what we're going to do this holiday season. In fact, this is called the first follower theory. when you're the one person doing something out of the ordinary, people think you're crazy. Like, think about if you were to go in at the holidays and you're wearing some silly outfit. One of my favorite things to do is to buy themed blazers. You can get them really cheap on Amazon that are just ridiculous. Whether they have turkeys all over them or they have, like, holiday decorations or they blink or whatever. Hilarious. If you're the only one wearing one, you might feel like an idiot. When two of you show up, now there's a party. That first follower that joins in with you turns you from you're an idiot to this looks like fun. Same's true about a dance floor, right? The first person that gets up, you're like, ooh, bad dance move. The second one, you're like, maybe I'll go, right? That's how you go from being the lone nut job to being the leader of the fun train, everybody. That's how fun becomes a movement. And so I'm going to take the first follower theory and I'm going to recruit someone to help me. And I want you to do the same. I am going to get our daughter Sawyer on the line because she is the CFO, the Chief Fun Officer of the Robbins family. And so as I get Sawyer on the line, I want you to think of your Chief Fun Officer, the person you're going to drag in to help you. Because if you both are like, come on, guys, everyone will be like, all right. And the fun bus will run the resignation and the cynicism right on over and make sure that fun bus has a damn good music dance party mix too, because that'll also bring the energy up. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we'll be right back because we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to the CFO, Chief Fun Officer of our family, Miss Sawyer Robbins. Oh, and we're going to talk about how the hell we're going to make our holidays fun. And in the process, we're going to give you some amazing ideas for how you can do the same. Okay, so Soy, thank you for being here because you know what? You are the funniest person in our family. Not only because you have the best sense of humor and you have the wittiest and driest sense of humor, but you also bring the fun. And you make our family so much better because of it. And I just love that about you.
Thank you.
I mean, literally, dude, everything. I mean, the foam hats, your idea. Dinner without clothing, your idea. A bar crawl in colonial costumes, your idea. Throwing a fake wedding, your idea. How the heck did you become so fun?
That is a tough question. Honestly, I feel like first off, I'm just very outgoing and obnoxious. So I think that kind of plays a role into it. But I think that I have been fortunate enough to be a part of friend groups where all we want to do is have fun and do things that are out of the ordinary. And I don't know, you can always just go to a bar, but it's more fun to dress up as like old women to go there. To just go alone. That's what I was for Halloween. I was a granny.
Can you please describe your costume to everybody? Because I think it's one of the best costumes I've ever seen.
I wore a wig and I got glasses and pearls and I got a cane and I was wearing like a sweater. I don't know. And I looked on probably 15 YouTube tutorials of how to make your makeup look like old women. And so I had like wrinkles all over me and a big mole. So, yeah.
Oh, and you know what other detail I loved?
What?
You had on like New Balance geriatric sneakers and you had a COVID mask hanging from one of those eyeglass things. I mean, the attention to detail. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because this is the first year that our family is hosting Thanksgiving at Ground Zero for Thanksgiving, which is the Southern Vermont House.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there are traditions that used to go with the Southern Vermont House when your grandparents owned the house. And now that we are the owners of the house, and this is the first Thanksgiving that we're inviting the extended family to come, that we should probably get really intentional about mixing up the traditions and inserting a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great, honestly.
Why? Do you think that that holidays are normally not that fun?
No, I think they're fun. I love holidays. If I could, I would just have Christmas all year long. But the fact that Thanksgiving is always a good time in when politics are not talked about or money or people's like life. I don't know. I feel like all we talk about is the boring stuff and what everyone does for work. And then Uncle Tom does his accents and everyone laughs and we have the exact same memories told over and over again. And then we go to bed. So I don't know. I'm down for some more fun this year for sure.
I agree. So, can you give me some ideas? Because you're a way more creative thinker than I am. And I remember when we were quarantining, you came up with a chart of themed evenings that we were going to do as a family in order to mix up the doldrum and to create things to look forward to. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.